Sarah, you're very welcome back. Thanks a million for coming back for Q&A today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've got two interesting questions today, don't we?
We do, yeah.
You're looking forward to the first one, aren't you?
I'm a bit nervous. I'm careful what I'm going to say.
Okay, let's just jump in and see what happens.
Hey, how are you? I have a question for you regarding couple finance. So I was wondering if a married couple, one wants to have a house and one doesn't, is it possible for one to go for a mortgage on their own and own the deed on their own? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow. What jumps into your head there, Sarah?
Just if this is a common question, I don't know if it would be. I don't even know.
You're a bit baffled by it, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lots of things that could be going on here, right? First of all, let's just try and answer the question directly. There is an issue if you have a married couple, and she mentions they're married, right?
Yeah.
If you have a married couple living in a house, and I'm not saying there isn't a workaround here, but you're going to need a good broker, okay? But if you think about it from the bank's perspective, you've got a married couple, you sign what's called a family home declaration, I think is the word we use for it. Yeah, it's a legal document anyway to say this is the family home, right? One of them's on the mortgage and one of them isn't. One of them's on the title deeds and one of them isn't. So one of them has the mortgage and the title deeds and the other one has nothing to do with the house, right? But they're married. It's been declared as the family home. And if she, for example, if she's the one buying the house, if she stops paying the mortgage, she's the only one with the legal agreement with the mortgage provider. She's the only one with the legal agreement with the bank. And the bank might find it hard to throw the person out of the house to sell it. So they say they want to repossess the house, sell it and get their mortgage back, right? They might find it harder to throw them out when they have no legal agreement with that person.
Okay, so for the husband in this situation.
For the husband in this situation, he has nothing to do with the mortgage, but it has been declared as his family home.
Okay.
He has been living there for X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
She stops paying the mortgage, and they might find it hard to get him out.
Okay.
In that circumstance.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a problem. If you think about it from the bank's perspective, why would they sign up to that?
Yeah.
They would kind of go, no. Now, there's a whole pile of other stuff going on in my head when I'm listening to that, right? They're married, so they're in a committed relationship. What's the word we used in the recent referendum? A durable relationship. They're in a durable relationship. Yeah. So they're in a durable relationship. And I'd really, we don't know this person. We have very little information on them, which makes it easier.
It could be something even to do with their income.
Could be to do with their income. Yeah, it could be to do with that. Maybe assuming she's the one who wants to buy it and he's not. Could be to do with their income.
Or his financial history. He could have had a bit of a crisis in the past and maybe they're worried he won't get mortgage approved.
Yeah. Or it could be to do with their opinion on where property prices are going to go.
Yeah.
So there's lots of factors that could be involved here. And ultimately, though, it could be something like we don't know this person, and we're not casting this person because we don't know them. We can speak openly. Maybe there's something else going on in the relationship.
Yeah.
And they really need to get to the root cause of why is it? Yeah. And maybe it's more my curiosity and your curiosity that we want to know.
Couples counselling with Eoin McGee, we should rename the episode.
But you'd really want to get to the root cause. And maybe it's a very simple explanation, right? Yeah. But you'd really want to get to the root cause as to why one of them wants to do it and the other one doesn't. Yeah. And if it's financial, that can be dealt with. If it's an expectation of where property prices are going to go, I'll just remind everyone my rule is always there's 3 rules when it comes to buying a home. If you love it, you can afford it, and you're going to stay in it long term, do it. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because house prices are going to always be going up and down, and there's never going to be a bell that rings to say now is the time to buy the house. Okay? So if you love it, you can afford it, and you're going to stay in it for more than 15 years, just buy it. Okay? And there's lots of things that can be addressed here. But with the information we have, we don't know. Yeah. And I'm not saying you're definitely not getting a mortgage on your own, but there are some barriers to it and you're going to need a good mortgage broker.
Well, we've covered this in a couple of episodes, but when you're getting a mortgage, you just kind of need to be ticking boxes left, right and centre. And I suppose there's always a chance they could be looking for a reason not to give you a mortgage, and this could be one of them.
Yeah. That is, and it depends on where the bank is at the time. Yeah. The bank is either in the phase where they're, let's try and get as many mortgages done as we possibly can. Yeah. And then other times they're like, let's try and find reasons not to give them. So look, it's not impossible, but I do think the root cause needs to be addressed here first, is my answer. Are you satisfied with that answer?
I am. I think the listener will be too.
Okay, great.
I hope.
Let's go for the second one.
Couples finance question. As a financial advisor, have you seen an increase in couples splitting bills or rent in an equitable fashion based on their income?
So my understanding of the question here is you've got two people. If they've got, based on their income word, suggests to me that they're on different incomes.
Yeah.
And so let's say, just to make the math simple, combined income over 100 grand, one of them's on 60, the other one's on 40. His question there is, if
Are they
I'm on,
splitting their bills,
yeah, should we be splitting it
60-40?
60-40? I shouldn't use 60-40 because everyone goes to no-brainer 60-40. But anyway, should we be splitting the bill 60-40? Is that the way we should do it? What do you think they should do, Sarah? Now, actually, just to remind the listener, Sarah works in marketing. What do your friends think about you doing this podcast, Sarah?
They're like, Sarah, I never knew you were an expert. You don't act like an expert.
Do as I say. Well, obviously do. But Sarah is not a qualified financial advisor. Sarah works in marketing. And it's the reason why Sarah's here, because what we hope to get from Sarah is what you, the listener, are thinking.
Yeah.
That it's not coming from a financial advisor's head.
Yeah.
That's why you're sitting there.
Yeah.
So what do you think they should do?
I suppose this question is up to the couple and how they kind of value the different things in their life, I would think. When it comes to rent and bills, I personally think they should be split equally, 50-50.
Regardless of salary?
Because we're both getting rent I think maybe it would be different if the person on the higher income was pushing for a more expensive rent or, more expensive costs, then I think you could say, well, if you want to upgrade it, that's on you. But I think when it comes to the basic things, you're getting the service with most bills. Like, when it comes to Wi-Fi, heating, when every time the heating goes on, it should be, should the heating go on?
Yeah.
So that's how, but I think it's I feel like that question is more, I don't know how you value things, but I could be completely wrong. But I feel like...
you see, the reality is, Sarah, you're not wrong,
Yeah.
but you're not right for everyone.
Okay, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and this is what it comes down to. Certain couples need a joint account or they'll split up. Certain couples would split up if they had a joint account, right? Certain couples will do 50-50 on everything.
Yeah.
Other couples will say, right, and I'm making the number up, you put $2,000 a month into the joint account, I put $2,000 a month into the joint account. Anything you earn above that's left in your own account is your own, and you spend on whatever you want, right? And that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
Other couples then, and you have to remember then, sometimes it's a situation where as a couple you make a decision, like we are going to have children, just as an example, right? That means that actually one of us might take a step back out of work and we might make a decision that we're at home. And you have to make sure you've had those conversations before that happens, because you could have two people on 100 grand a year each, everything's been 50-50, and all of a sudden a family decision is made that one of them's going to stay at home and their salary drops to zero and now they've no cash of their own. And that's a very difficult place to go if you haven't had a conversation about the contribution that person is making to the overall family finances, not just to raising the kids, but to the family finances and supporting the other person to be able to go out and work. So the answer to this question is it's personal.
Yeah.
Okay. There is research out there that says it should be 50-50, but I guarantee I could find research that says it should be 60-40 or whatever else it is as well.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to sitting down at a kitchen table or on the sofa and saying, right, what works for us?
Yeah.
What is the right thing? And that's a difficult conversation to have, but not nearly as difficult as saying nothing.
Yeah.
Resentment builds up very quickly when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had the conversation, you are going to find it very difficult to fix some of that resentment later on if you don't have your foundations right.
We kind of covered it in the season 1 couples episode where just kind of communication is key. And I suppose this is as important as your financial history and financial goals is as important as your relationship history and your relationship goals.
And I will say, I said at the start of this episode that, we're talking about couples, but this stuff relates to singles as well, right? And what I would say is if you're single and you're kind of going, well, I don't have anyone to split, it's much harder for you as single. Like half a Netflix or 60-40 of a Netflix is much easier to afford than 100% of Netflix on your own, right? But what I would say is you still need to communicate with yourself. Right? As an individual, your word there a minute ago was values, right? You need to decide what's valuable to you. What do you value? What's important to you to spend your money on? And that communication between you, a pen and a piece of paper is absolutely It's even more important when you're on your own than with a couple. With a couple, you have someone to bounce the ideas at, right? Later in the month when things go wrong or things change or...
Someone to blame.
Yeah, someone to blame. I was going to go, you have someone to bounce it off, but fair enough, okay. You have someone to blame. But when it comes to just you and you're rowing your own boat, you really need to write it down on a pen and paper and then look at that from time to time. And I say pen and paper on purpose, right? Excel is great, do the big stuff on that. But when it comes to values, when it comes to thinking about how you really feel about stuff, writing it down makes much more sense because something happens in our brain when we write stuff down. It just goes in a bit deeper.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about writing down, I value my night out on a Thursday night with work or whoever it is, right? I value the money I spend on the gym. I value whatever else it is. And writing down that they're important to you and allocating the money to them first and then allocating the money to the other stuff afterwards. Now you have to pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever, right? But once you've got your needs covered, what are your wants? Mm-hmm. And writing that down makes a massive difference. Yeah. That makes sense? And writing them down is really important when you're on your own. If anyone listened to the heuristics one a couple of weeks ago, he did recommend a book called The Invisible Gorilla. And I am about 3/4 way through The Invisible Gorilla. One of the things I've learned from it is that our memories let us down all the time. Yeah. And it's actually, by writing stuff down, it's the best way of getting the true memory of what you really, really wanted. Yeah. So writing it down as an individual, and actually writing it down as a couple is really important too, but I guarantee your partner's going to remind you what they heard you say. That's our questions this week. Sarah, do you want more questions?
Yes, we're always looking for more questions, suggestions for topics you'd like covered. If you'd like to be a guest, please send us a WhatsApp, and if you're sending a question, a voice note would be great. And it's to 087 291 0507.
Well done. And actually, one of the things I was asked the other day, I was doing an interview about the podcast, and I was asked what guest would be my absolute, my dream guest, who would I like? I'm not sure I know. So if listeners have a thought, if you have a thought, you might share it. But if listeners have a thought about who they'd love to see on the podcast, and I'm talking about big stuff here. Yeah. Yeah. And reminder to all the listeners, the only way we get big guests is if you hit the follow button.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We'll see you again soon.
See ya.